Subtitles. Today's tale is even more thrilling than a soap opera. He drove to his company, but was still rejected. Despite his explanations, the receptionist saw him as a troublesome stranger. To prove his identity, he angrily pointed to the management list, only to find the general manager's name replaced by his subordinates. Jack was stunned. He couldn't believe the world became so absurd overnight. He rushed out in disbelief, nearly hit by a luxury car amidst his confusion. On closer look, it was his Ferrari, with that black man from last night inside. Jack seized this last hope and got in the car. He hoped that the guy would say it was all just a joke, but instead, he cruelly stated, "This is all you're doing." Jack couldn't figure out what kind of magic that guy had to swap their identities overnight. He begged him to let him off the hook and return to his original life. After a flurry of nonsensical words, the guy hit the brakes and let him go, handing him a red bag that just contained a plain bicycle bell. "Will you come to call me? Now you need to leave." Watching the car drive away, Jack had no choice but to accept reality. He drove back, but, rushing out that morning, was lost and planned to ask a stranger. To his surprise, the stranger recognized him. "Jack, I find you." "Oh, where have you been?" The man pulled Jack into his house, and upon seeing the photos in the wall, he realized they were best friends. His friend looked at Jack. His friend thought Jack had run away after a fight with Annie. "Isn't this Kate? Look, it's like we're still in each other's heads." His friend couldn't believe that Jack and Annie would have a spat since they were known as the most loving couple. Jack was the envy of everyone. He had a beautiful and devoted wife, 2 adorable kids, and lived in a spacious 4-bedroom home. At life's peak, he couldn't grasp why his friend's contentment was so confined, as if plunging from heaven to abyss. Cautiously, he explored a new world. Upon arriving home, Annie rushed to him, giving a warm hug, as his disappearance was truly bizarre. Annie had searched for him all day, and was about to call the cops. Jack, however, could only helplessly accept the reality. He sadly claimed he was neither married nor a father, that this wasn't his home, even pulling out the bell given by the guy, hoping the dream would shatter with its sound. Just then, his daughter rode up on her bike, thinking this was a Christmas gift from Daddy. Annie didn't divorce, but reminded him to attend the New Year party. Unable to change it, he could only accept. The life disparity made him frown, his closet full of cheap, coarse clothes. As he was at a loss, his daughter entered, perplexed by his strange look. At the evening party, he dressed in decent loungewear, but the stylish woman approached him to flirt. Her manners hinted she was fond of Jack, but he felt zero interest and instead chuckled at Annie with an inexplicable happiness. After the dinner, they walked home, and Annie insisted Jack take the dog out before bed. Although he was reluctant, he complied. Upon his return, his wife was asleep, but pajamas she had prepared for him lay by the bed. It was his first taste of home warmth. Next morning, he awoke to find the bed empty, and couldn't help but smile, thinking the dream had ended. However, the baby's cries pulled him back to reality. He knocked on the door, reminding Annie of the crying child. But Annie told him it was his turn to care for the baby, and reminded him to take their son to daycare. But the scene before him left him dumbfounded, unsure where to even begin. Fortunately, his daughter was present by his side to offer him guidance, yet his awkward demeanor made his daughter realize something was amiss. She couldn't comprehend why her father appeared so unfamiliar. Subtitles. She believed that the man standing in front of her was like a character from an animated cartoon, coming from outer space, who had kidnapped her once all-powerful father. "Yes, welcome to the daycare." Guided by his daughter, Jack took his son to daycare and prepared to send his daughter to school, but didn't know what to do next. "Annie, where am I supposed to go now?" "Daycare." "The daycare van." "Why?" "Because you work there." He worked 8 HRS daily at a tie shop from his father-in-law. In his office, the walls were plastered with family photos. Even though he didn't know why the man in the photo was smiling, that smile exuded. In 1988, he was awarded Employee of the Year, reminiscing about another version of himself tirelessly hustling in London. But in this parallel world, Jack hadn't boarded a plane. Instead, he chose to stay and marry Annie. He couldn't understand why he would willingly bury his own. That night, Jack saw a news report on a $120 spin merger meant for him, but ended up with a subordinate. At that moment, Annie burst in, hastily drew the curtains, turned off the TV, and played music. The kids were asleep, granting them rare couple time. Jack suddenly noticed her once sweet, now mature and alluring charm. Years later, she was still beautiful, but with added maturity and allure. Annie was puzzled why her husband suddenly seemed so sentimental. He cheerfully dashed into the bathroom, thinking their life had been too dull, lacking surprises for years. However, when ready, he found Jack already fast asleep. Annie gently tucked him in and kissed his forehead, ending their precious time. Jack had been stalling, unprepared for a new life. His first small trip with family left him full of grumbles. Frustration from haggling left him unwilling to shop more with Annie. She let him rest in the lobby, where upscale menswear caught his attention. He gazed at every item on the wall, and finally stopped in front of one piece, thinking it might bring him a sense of balance. He expected the outfit to bring balance, yet the price turned into a wealth gap chasm. He can no longer tolerate the trivialities of this life, and perhaps Annie will be greatly surprised by the husband who once lived life with such passion.